I know it's constantly talked about how bad social media really is. I kind of just swept it under the rug and didn't think twice about it until I came across this TED Talk that really changed my perspective on social media and its toxicity in general. So today I just wanted to break down this video, go over it with you guys because it is very powerful and it moved me in terms of my social media usage. So let's just break it down and go through the key points. So to start off the video, he does this very interesting visual aspect, which is a matrix of dots.
The dots on this screen represent an adult life in months, assuming a life expectancy of 90. So if you're 18 years old right now, this is an optimistic estimate of the months that you have left.
One by one, he then eliminates these months by looking at different things that suck our time: work and school, sleep, which is a huge portion, hygiene, commuting, and even spending time with family and friends. And then he shows that just over half is left to spend on whatever you want to accomplish in life.
So that leaves you with 334 months, optimistically, for everything else. So this is where you tick the boxes on your bucket list. This is where you pursue your passions and travel the world and leave your mark. How you spend this time is going to determine the quality of your life.
He then explains that we have 334 months, if we're currently 18, remaining in our life. And this is the first part that really stuck out to me and something I really loved. He said that those months are a visual representation of how you need to invest that time to become and shape you into the person that you want to become. And that was very game-changing for me because seeing it visually is something you don't see every day, and it really put it in perspective how we should be spending our time to further our own interest and to really make an impact in our own lives and in the lives of others. The real shocker, though, is when he said this.
But today, the average 18-year-old in the United States is on pace to spend 93% of their remaining free time looking at a screen.
That is mind-blowing. 93% of remaining time is what teenagers today are on track to spend their life behind a screen. 7%, that's all we have left with this trajectory. He put another number to this, and that number is 26 years, which is the total number of time with that same trajectory that we would spend looking at a screen for those remaining months. 26 years. This really came as a shock to me and really made me think twice about how long we're looking at screens each day, and me personally, even how long I spent scrolling and how much time I was wasting doing things that weren't progressing me forward as an individual. He further says that on average, 8 hours and 39 minutes of our waking hours are spent behind a screen, and that the average duration of a TikTok is 15 seconds, and the average duration we spend looking at a website is about a minute. So switching these tasks over and over and over and over again throughout the entire day is creating what he called chronic distraction within our generation. This in turn also ruins our focus for relationships, for hobbies, for our job, and anything we want to accomplish, and makes it much harder to do that.
When we're staring at our screens, we are constantly switching our attention between different pieces of information. And if you're switching your attention every 15 seconds for an average of 8 hours and 39 minutes a day, you are training yourself to become chronically distracted.
That's not the only part of mental health he touches on. He also talks about the typical discussion about how likes and highlight reels on Instagram and other platforms are just meant to serve as exactly that, as highlight reels, and make younger children and even adults feel depressed when you see these crazy lives that people are living when our day-to-day life is not nearly that exciting. He also makes the point about Snapchat and their streaks, which is something that's not often talked about, but then he shows this example of this girl sending a Snapchat that just said streaks.
You get a point added to your Snapchat streak, even if you just send a picture of the side of your face with the caption streaks.
It goes to show that it's not about the communication we have, but more about the number of communications we have, not about the quality of them, which is kind of the ongoing problem here. And in terms of Twitter, which of course is now X, he also talks about why it has become so normalized that we limit our speech to less than the amount of characters that Twitter allows, and that going deep isn't really valued anymore in terms of written text. He says something that also digs much deeper right here.
That it's more important to be updated about everything than deeply informed about anything.
He then takes an unexpected turn and talks about traditional types of entertainment and what people used to use instead of social media, and for this he chooses the idea of books. One topic will typically take you weeks, if not months, to read about, and that same topic is carried out through pages, sentences, paragraphs, and throughout chapters as well, to keep you hooked over time and keep the ball rolling, keeping your attention and building attention span as you read the book. Quite the opposite of social media.
And when you start to compare the messages these platforms are sending with those of technologies from the past, you begin to get a sense of what we might be losing. Because the inherent structure of a book says that the world is complex and it takes time to understand. It compels us to walk in the shoes of other people and see things from their perspective with context.
And contrasting to X is a mailed letter, where it's not about the frequency like Snapchat, where you're talking to people. It is about the depth and quality and length of the message you're sending to that loved one or to acquaintance or a business partner, where it's about what you're talking about and less so about the frequency of what you're saying that makes it valuable.
And the letter tells us that our communication doesn't need to be frequent. It just needs to be deep.
The difference between how much time we think we spend on social media and on social platforms versus what we actually spend is noted to be drastically different. And this is all by design, Dino lays out. What he says is that we are the product. So many people are shocked that social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat are completely free to you, when in reality that's not really true. And this is also something he demonstrates very visually and in a great way. He says that you are the product, the number of posts you consume is linked to how many ads you are shown, and then how much you consume as a result. The social media platforms are being paid by your time and attention. He then turns to the audience and asks them if it were to be paid, how much everyone would be willing to pay for their favorite social media platform.
Raise your hand if you would pay at least $5 a month. Okay, how about $10 a month? 20? I don't see any hands anymore. Well, let's do a quick calculation to figure out how much we're effectively paying for an app like TikTok. We'll assume that you value your time at a rate of $20 per hour, and you're spending 2 hours a day on the platform, or 30 days in a month, so you're effectively paying $1,200 per month for TikTok. So when you start to do this kind of analysis, it quickly becomes clear that most of us are drastically overpaying for social media.
So in order to combat this, he says that the key here is not to cut out social media indefinitely and to just get rid of everything altogether. Instead, he focuses on the idea of finding what's important in social media to you. Is it reading about news, or finding information for research, or posting things for your small business, or finding useful information? All of these things are completely valid, but what he says to spend a limited amount of time doing this, and when you get distracted, to just get off of it instead of keep scrolling.
Figure out what it means for you to get a good deal out of social media platforms. In order to do that, you have to do two things. You have to ask yourself, what value do these services provide? And second, you have to ask, how much of your time is that value worth?
He ends off the speech with a very powerful message. Free time is our most valuable resource, and to not give it away for free. Overall, the message from this talk and the way it was presented was in a way that it was very, very impactful for me. I highly recommend you go watch it. I'll leave a link down in the description below. But it came at a perfect time because I was starting to wonder more about social media and the overall negative consequences that it is creating over time, and especially with this newer generation that grew up full-time on social media. I typically listen to a podcast on my way to work on the train, and I look around and see everyone just staring down at their phones, even when they're just walking around the city, which is absolutely crazy to think about, that we literally don't even know what's going on around us. Even something as simple as taking a photo of a sunset, I noticed I'm looking at my phone screen to try to take a photo of the sunset and not actually looking at the sunset itself at all. And this is honestly such a big problem and something I am definitely more interested in learning more about. As of recently, I've decided to delete all social media, except YouTube, of course, and I would tell everyone that I was slow to respond. I also typically have my phone and all my other devices on Do Not Disturb all day so that I can decide when I check messages, not whenever I get a notification. And this has been huge for my distractibility and to be able to focus for longer periods of time. But mind you, I do work in finance and need a screen to do my job, but outside these hours, I'm just more mindful of how I spend my time and when I spend time on social media or on a screen. I really hope this helped you think a little bit more critically about how you use social media and just your screen in general, and hopefully it gets you to think a little bit deeper. I just wanted to share this with you because it did single-handedly change how I thought about it and provided me a new perspective. And as you know, social media affects us all, so it is a very, very big aspect of our lives. If you do want to watch some more, check this out right here.